think it's about getting some of these big counter picks. It was kind of a choice for LNG. It was like, hey, look, what are you planning to go for here? Is the Zeri, the Ryze, the Hecarim? What do you want? So both the jungle pickup here for Jiejie, super strong alongside that Jinx, and also disrupts LNG to a certain extent. When you get this area, we usually see her with these kind of like compositions that want to dive in on top of people like the Hecarim, but now Tarzan probably needs to fall back to something like the Volibear because of that, because you need that kind of, hey, we're going to get this forward, we're going to start aggressing into these fights and looking for those big engages. Maybe you get the Ryze here for Doinb to try and round things out, but the Twisted Fate's still available if he wants to go for it, and with the Gwen and the Gnar banned away, Graves as well, looks like Ala is just going to go back towards the Jayce.
Yep, sticking with that one. Banned away the pick that he counters for this game, so he can be a little bit more comfortable in that top lane. We'll see where EDG are going to go with this one. Could go for a top laner here just to make sure that they have a good matchup for Flandre. But the other option is grab themselves a support, maybe a mid laner, but the Ryze is available. It's going to be locked.
I mean, Scout did really well on that pick in the last one. There was like one play where I was like, oh, you're used to being tanky. Outside of that, really good early game, good control. You get to ban away things like the Orianna, and again here, just for EDG in this second rotation, making sure that you're comfortable in this mid lane for Scout. There's the Galio ban as well from Doinb, just to make sure that they're going to be comfy. So I think for EDG, kind of setting the bunts more for this strong early game, good push bot, solid mid jungle matchup, and we're just to see, especially with the counter pick in topside potentially there for Flandre. I'm wondering what he will go to into this Jayce. We've seen him any top. We've seen the Vladimir coming out for Flandre into this matchup. Malphite going to be taken off the board as well here for LNG, so we'll have to see what the plan is.
Galio and the Malphite gone, so a lot of tanks being removed from the situation, but Jiejie and Tarzan already have big tanks, so I'm kind of surprised that either team would be so focused on that, but the Twisted Fate being taken off. It's more about the global presence with this Galio, so that Scout can have the one roaming mid laner. And once again, this is the same strategy that we saw against Doinb in game number 1, right? The TF, the Galio, and that Karma, which not necessarily all in the first phase this time, but still those same 3 mid lane bans towards Doinb. See where LNG go. With that top lane ban, it is going to be a Gragas as well.
So I'm wondering now, like, you can get Kennen, could do okay, but again, like, we've seen Vladimir's, we've seen Annie's from Flandre, like, specifically for the Jayce matchup. It's something that he had prepped for World, and we got to see him bring it out in the second week. But Tryndamere has been one of the big go-to answers into a lot of these ranged matchups on the top side, and Flandre feeling comfortable to opt into the 1-3-1 here.
Yeah, and it's one of these matchups that we've seen go both ways as well, right? The Tryndamere, if you can play it right, if you hold your E, you make sure you don't get knocked back afterwards, then you can win the fight. But also Jayce, if you play it sort of perfectly, if you space it well, if you knock them back when they're in the middle of their E, you can win it out with the phase rush as well. So feels like an exciting matchup. And once again, looks like LNG gonna lean on what they won game number 1 with. This Corki for Doinb will be locked in once more.
I don't know if I'm as happy with it this time. It felt like LNG in the last one had a definitive, hey, let's play at range. This time around, though, because you got the Zeri, who's relatively short range, it makes it a little bit tougher. Also, you don't have the ability to kind of answer for the 1-3-1 of EDG because you do lose out so heavily on that mid push, because Zeri just doesn't have the range to deal with Jinx. So if EDG get off to a relatively decent start, it can actually be quite tough for LNG to try and claw it back. But we saw them do it in the last game. Maybe they can do it once more.
Now to EDG for their final lock-in, which is very likely to be that support. Ooh, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? I don't know if you want to go for that against a full range composition, though. Certainly would work with disengage against the Zeri, but I don't know how well it does against the Jayce or Corki.
Yeah, I think the thought process here is like, look, if I can get the Leona and the Volibear locked up with it, it actually means the backline for LNG have to run away. Like, you can't, it's very slow moving, but you do have to respect the ultimate from the Renata. So I think in that way, it's kind of like, hey, I'm going to isolate the front line so we can kind of deal with them. Maybe even catch the Zeri in that, and then we can go and focus on the rest of LNG. So I do like the pick as well. Just getting that double range in the bot lane means you've got definitive push bot, you've got good push mid. It makes it very difficult for LNG to try and shut down Flandre in that top side when they've already got 2 losing lanes. And makes it quite easy for Scout to lean towards Flandre, Jiejie to get into that picture as well. Like, it feels again like EDG are the ones with the playing tools, and LNG have to respond.
Yeah, the question will be if EDG can once again find advantages in that laning phase. This time, not throw it away, right? We saw about 20 minutes into the game go way too deep, trying to force a pick, and ended up completely losing control of the game. And once they lost that fight, it felt like they never regained control. LNG, very decisive moment in that game. Doinb especially stepping up. And then for the rest of the game, taking over, having control, finding those drakes and finding the barons as well. But also, LNG, really aggressive trigger pull on the first baron of the game as well, right? We saw them just absolutely blast that one down and find an objective with relatively little contest. So it feels like actually LNG have been the more decisive of the two teams, which is the last thing I expected to say coming into this series.
I mean, EDG have been decisive. They just haven't been right decisions. That's kind of the problem. I think, though, again, like, this was something that we highlighted at the start of the day when I saw Jiejie on the Jarvan. I was like, hey, look, sometimes he goes a bit too far. Like, he just overextends. That was the problem the last game. We're on the Hecarim. That was the pick that, again, I kind of highlighted saying, hey, look, sometimes Jiejie, when we get to these engagements, he will go too far. So, especially now that he's the primary engage tool, I'm a little bit worried if Jiejie hasn't got his cool head on him, that LNG might be able to punish. Because again, as you kind of rightfully pointed out, like, there's a lot of range on Doinb and Ala. If you are not finding the right engagements, LNG can turn these fights around.
And Flandre has taken a bit of a tag. I'm guessing Ala managed to get a shock blast in. As we start things off, LNG going for a bit of a late invade, getting some vision onto those chickens. Scout gets a couple of autos onto the ward, but obviously cannot finish that one off. EDG, I think, will likely try and answer, but it's going to be difficult, especially with the Renata, to be able to move in and get some vision. So this will be a slight vision advantage for LNG. I mean, does this matter, Dagda? Like, that deep ward? I feel like we always talk about this, these like deep wards early on. Like, does this actually matter? Or are we just going to see your standard clear and it's whatever?
So for EDG, I mean, Jiejie is 100% going to just go for standard clear. This Hecarim can have some early pressure, but much prefers when he's able to have a little bit of like setup. So I imagine for Jiejie, it'll be full clear reset. Then maybe we'll get the ghost play into mid lane with like the flash setup from Scout. I don't know though if you really want to try and commit to that though, because Tarzan does have a really good response if you overcommit in that lane. Like, Jiejie is not going to be particularly tanky. If you can't get that burst damage on towards Doinb, they can turn that around. So you have to be very careful about how you try and play against the mid jungle for LNG.
Okay, so the vision, Jiejie now going to step onto that one as Ala loses the coin flip, gets crit, and that means he loses the lane, unfortunately. That is top lane over, unfortunately for Ala. Such is life against Jiejie. I'm obviously exaggerating ever so slightly there, but it does always feel bad when you get crit on the 30% chance early on in the lane. It always feels a little bit more impactful, but Flandre going for the spin in, immediately knocked away, and that's pretty much this matchup in a nutshell.
In a nutshell does sound quite right, though, as well, to be honest. Scout, though, nice bit of damage there onto Doinb. And again, this is kind of where I expect the pressure to come from. Scout pushing mid, pushing bot as well with the double range. And it's going to make it a little bit tough for Tarzan to, like, have impact in these lanes. Especially as, like, Jiejie, it becomes so easy. Like, get control of river, make it a little bit easier for yourself to set up. But last game, we saw Tarzan try and hide in this exact same brush. We'll have to see if it goes better this time.
Tarzan gets himself that Scuttle Crab, left both of his bottom camps up to be able to path up there, get the Scuttle Crab first. Jiejie is trying to get onto this bear. Tarzan is much more interested in efficient farming right now. Can move towards his bottom side, but Iwandi trying to set this crab up for him, and then can go back to his initial two camps. So very nicely done here by Tarzan to find a little advantage over Jiejie.
Yeah, it does cost Ala, though. Ala, though, realizing, hang on a second, if you're going to put all this pressure down towards the bot scuttle, I've actually got to reset and make sure that I'm not in danger of being dove. So Ala going to go for the quick reset, and this actually gives Flandre a nice timing to get his own reset in where he doesn't have to worry about the wave being pushed in. So there is always that, like, trade cost when you put that much attention on towards these early scuttles, and honestly, it doesn't really set Jiejie that far behind. Like, you still only got your first level camps to clear out here as Tarzan on the bot side. So honestly, Jiejie is kind of like, cool, like you're wasting time here, and I'm actually getting a lot of the XP brought back up because my second round of camps is.
Well, Tarzan has just completely ignored his crooks. He's not even done the first round of crooks just yet. Flandre didn't actually manage to get that reset off that we talked about, so Ale will have a minor advantage up in this top side. Down in XP, but up in terms of items, at least for now, as Jiejie pathing down, or pathing up. He's hovering down, but he's already done his gromp, so I guess he's just looking to make a play on this bottom side. Pings in the bottom lane. Light and iWandy could be in trouble as Jiejie tries to make his way down. Remember, EDG usually like to focus on these early Drakes. They didn't get it in game number 1. They want iWandy instead, but nice little dodge from iWandy. Avoids the hook for himself. That could be an opportunity now for Jiejie to start the Drake.
iWandy doesn't handshake. He just walks away from that. Jiejie, though, still here. I think this might be a bit of an overcommit. Scout's starting to roam down, but he's only level 5.
EDG and overcommitting to a play. Name a more iconic duo in this series in particular. Bit of a reach, to be honest. But LNG are here. Tarzan spotted on the ward, I think. I'm not sure if you quite got close enough. Surely EDG not going to pull the trigger on this one in the end, as Viper should be able to at least grab himself a plate. iWandy going to clear that ward away, and they realize they've been rustled. But regardless, they denied the dive, and that's what was crucial here.
Doinb will hit 6 in the mid lane, though, and with push might actually move up towards his top side. So might be looking to see if they can punish Flandre again. Flandre hasn't reset, but looks like Doinb instead just going to sit in this mid lane. And the longer that Flandre stays in lane, the more it actually kind of favors Ale. Like, Ale's got to worry about the tier, although as I say that...
Oh, Ale actually going back in. Forces... Wait, no, he didn't ult. Flandre. Oh my god, this man has nerves of steel. I can't believe he didn't ult there.
Yeah, I mean, every other player that I've seen would be slamming that ult button, but I suppose hashtag calculated as Jiejie and Scout. I mean, this is going to be careful. Level advantage for Jiejie.
Yeah, Scout level 6 as well. Jiejie trying to get onto the crab. Going to be able to try and burst this one. Tarzan moving over. Neither jungler has an improved smite, but Jiejie gets the smite anyway. And LNG not really able to contest, unfortunately, for them. First straight for EDG, remember, as well. So a couple of advantages starting to be built up by EDG at this point. They do have a minor gold lead as well. iWandy in the brush. Maybe wants to make something happen, but caught out by a sweeper. Tarzan getting the chickens in the meantime. They will be finished off as Jiejie actually gets reset on, so has to go back and finish those chickens off. Bit of a weird one because there was no Herald up just yet. Still not up for another minute. Both teams posturing fairly aggressively and moving a lot of players over to make this happen.
The thing is, though, like, the fact that EDG haven't been able to play through these strong winning lanes to get a bigger advantage says a lot about LNG. Like, Flandre sticking around in this top lane means that now you've got the reset for Ale. He's picked up the tier 2 boots. Means that he's going to be relatively alright against Flandre for those all-ins, just having that little bit more protection. But again, like, the reason I want to see Flandre reset sooner is because it means that you're actually able to, like, punish the fact you have to have this tier stop off for Ale. He's kind of got to a point now where he's okay. Like, Ale going for a bit of a greedier build and going for that tier first. So Flandre now not going to have as much pressure. You're looking at the mid lane. Scout hasn't been able to make any of these plays stick. Viper and Meiko as well. Like, yes, they're getting some push and bot, but they're not actually getting enough where they can chip away at the turret. Because they're afraid of, like, iWandy and Tarzan coming down. So for LNG, like, a slower paced game like this kind of suits them because of the way the composition's set.
Does Ale trying to get a bit heavier with the trading up in that top side. I just feel like Flandre will need to find those opportune moments to be able to actually aggress upon Ale and get some damage back. So far, though, Flandre having that CS lead after what happened earlier on in that top lane matchup. So far, so good for him. The question is just what happens over the next few minutes, who can punish this matchup. But relatively even, honestly, across the entire scoreboard. Gold just about even as well. And I'm kind of nervous, Dagda. I feel like this is going to be one of those games where it's really, really quiet until it is. Then suddenly it's just back-to-back battles as Flandre tries to get onto Ale, but barely doing any damage at all.
Yeah, I thought they were going to try and play off Scout's push in mid to then rotate him up and look for the realm warp with Jiejie, maybe look for the dive, but not going to do so. And now Jiejie actually cancelled the Rift Herald, and with Doinb now being able to answer for the push in mid, Looks like Jiejie a little bit scared on starting up, but Tarzan looking for the counterplay instead. Wants to see if he can go for the dive on bot side.
Flandre going for a trade onto
look at
Ala, but once again just getting bodied here. Scout moving towards this bottom lane, as is Doinb. No package available here. Tarzan wants to try and make a dive happen. Viper instant cleanse on that solar flare. That was gorgeous to watch, but Light has a lot of damage to work with. Viper gonna get his reset. No, he isn't. He's gonna go down. LNG pulling off an absolute criminal play here, and there's nothing EDG can do about it. Without, even with Scout moving, they can't turn it. Scout, I thought he was going to go more aggressive there. I thought he was going to go 1v4, but regardless, LNG win it out, and Ala might do the same on the top side of the map.
No phase rush to move away. Ala won't go in, but LNG are making the plays happen. TP from Doinb back to the mid lane to collect that wave as well, and Flandre wants it.
Oh, he certainly does, but he's not going to find it. Jiejie moving over as well. Ala maybe goes for a trade here.
It's a base.
Trying to look juicy. He's trying to look juicy. Flandre, the juiciest of them all, as Jiejie comes in. Gets onto Ala. The fear is there. Flandre can't finish the kill, though. Has to use his endless rage here. Will finally pull the trigger on the ulti, and Tarzan with the dubstep smite to finish it off.
The bait into bait. You see there, Ala's like, you know what? Oh, no, I'm going to play for it. Don't mind me, Flandre. I'm just being silly, but Tarzan is coming right in behind him. So well played by LNG across the board here. So, see Doinb, we talked about him getting that push because Scout had kind of hovered up towards the top side, but there's not enough people here fast enough on EDG side to try and shut it down. Viper not able to get the reset either. So LNG managed to get this play. And then as well, just on the top side, another kill going for Tarzan. So 3 quick kills now going the way of LNG. A nice little gold lead ballooning for them.
Yeah, and you know, I remember back in Worlds, me and you, Dagda, were giggling about the idea of stupid, sexy Flandre, right? And I feel like he's been out-sexied. I feel like Ala managing to look even juicier than Flandre himself, which is going to sound really weird. In case anyone doesn't know what we're on about, look juicy is a call-out that we always go for in our games when we're playing with friends. And it's like, try and bait. Look juicy, right? You want them to, like, if an apple's juicy, that's the one you want to go for, right? So you're trying to bait them in. Yeah, bit weird without that context, I think. So just thought I'd drop that in the conversation quickly. LNG could grab themselves a Drake. It's 3-0. 1,000 gold lead, as you alluded to earlier. Jiejie wants to answer that one. Does have a Herald still in pocket, remember. And I think that's the next question, is where Jiejie goes with that Herald.
I mean, I don't know if he's going to get a chance. He wants to try and move him bot, but they're diving again.
Oh my days. It's just pure chaos in this one. Light gets a plate. The 4-man play in the bottom side from LNG to get Light 1 play. I like it. Smart macro right there.
But I like that we're seeing LNG playing towards Light this time around, because the composition from LNG isn't really set up to try and play sides. It's about grouping and playing for objectives and looking to use that range with Doinb and Ala, and then having Light, when EDG close the gap to be the big carry, is Ala will be alright. But the fact that you're like getting Doinb roaming down, you're getting these plates, these are actually going to help LNG in the long run. And again, like LNG, we talked about in the last game, a bit of a different style of composition than we're used to with them. Well, this is kind of the same thing now. Although it has like elements of side lane, this is more about grouping and using range.
Yeah, it really is. I love how both mid laners as well, on Ryze and Corki, like, you'll occasionally see rockets thrown out at each other, and like, they'll trade if the other mispositions, but realistically, they both know there is 0 kill threat in this lane without help, and help has arrived for LNG. Doinb goes aggressive. Iwandi and Tarzan trying to make a play happen, but it is just going to be mid lane cleared up here in the end, trying to fight for priority. No neutrals up for another couple of minutes just yet, though, so Jiejie moves up to that top side, and we do finally get to see that Herald drop down. And Flandre getting a much-needed influx of gold. You can see he's about even on gold right now, but with this plate plus 2 more from the Herald, Flandre finds himself a lead up in that top side.
He traded for Light in the bot lane. Light has been left alone on this bot side. Nerdy takes the turret, so all is said and done, kind of even again, which is why we're still holding on to that 1,500 gold lead, as Light kind of knows he's pretty much all right here. Meiko not going to be able to get too much of an engage on him, so threatening up in the lane. Flandre should take this top lane tower, unless Tarzan is here. Wants to face it.
Yeah, Flandre trying to make that happen, but Ala goes for a bit of an all-in underneath the tower, forces him away, makes him realize that if he goes for that, He will pay for it. Viper taking a chunk to the slow. There's a solar flare and another instant cleanse. Man, Viper, he's not CC'able.
Yeah, Captain Viper over here instantly getting that away. Nice job, but again, a bit of an overextension there to try and take it. But EDG now putting pressure onto this top side. Flandre will finally get this. And it's interesting to see the Flandre has actually opted for the Gale Force early here. We usually see the Hullbreaker Hullbreaker first on these top laners, just because one, it's really good against Jayce. As we said, Jayce doesn't really build it. And two, just keeping up with the split push is great. But it looks like, at least with this build, Flandre at the moment thinking more about the team fight. So I'm curious to see if he's going to go for the Hullbreaker second here, or if he's just going to go for the Navori Quick Blades, because the Gale Force does let you kind of have that stickability to Ala, but I think the Hullbreaker will certainly decide whether Flandre is playing for lane or if he's playing for team.
Yeah, I think with the Ghost as well, though, this Gale Force definitely makes things a bit more difficult for Ala, right? You can't just knock Tryndamere away and be safe anymore, so perhaps just trying to find a little bit more individual pressure, not necessarily in terms of the split push, because, you know, Hullbreaker definitely trumps Gale Force for that, but in terms of threatening an actual kill. I'm surprised he let Ala recall there. I feel like you could have contested that one, but Flandre obviously wanting no top laner to be there for now.
Yeah, especially with the Rift Turtle about to spawn, they're just like, hey, look, that's cool. You reset. That'll give us priority on the objective. Viper, though.
Viper knew that was greedy. He went for an extra auto on those back minions, and instantly he Gale Forces and flashes away. He knew he was stepping too far. But that does mean now, for a Herald fight, Viper, no flash, no cleanse, no Gale Force. He's going to be in a precarious spot if LNG can punish. Herald down to 5,000. His scout is off on a flank, but he stood on a ward as well. EDG on the wrong side of the map here. I feel like LNG in a good spot, but Scout wants to go for the flank. In they go with the all-in Flandre behind enemy lines as well. Jiejie falls though, and Flandre's 1v4. He just doesn't have the damage to make that happen, or does he? Finds one for his trouble. LNG forced away here. They still win the fight though.
LNG are all so low. EDG still able to threaten here. That's why LNG are confident to just go back over towards the Rift Herald, but bit of a messy engage from EDG. No one really able to follow up on that one, and you can see Scout and Viper trying to play over the wall, but LNG just able to kite back into that nice little nook in their jungle and make sure that EDG can't follow up. LNG will get the dragon for their wins.
They certainly will. So EDG struggling when it comes to the neutral objective game in this series, and that was one of the things we came in saying, that EDG was one of the very best at in the entire league, but LNG have done a great job of answering for that. It will be an Ocean Soul this game as well, so very valuable when you're running a poke composition. If you can deny that Ocean Soul, if you can get that for yourselves, well, the siege only gets stronger.
And here's the thing, when LNG have a lead at the 15-minute mark, they're one of the best at closing out. I mean, they're 86% win rate when they have a lead at 15, and they certainly have a lead. But you can see here, EDG, right? Jiejie and Flandre think, hey, look, we can carry this through. But Meiko, the ult doesn't really set up much. Like, Flandre's already dead by the time that connects. Viper has only thrown an ultimate into this fight. It was just too far afield for EDG to try and follow up. And you can see with how low the health bars are, even if you could get a handful of auto attacks in there from Viper, that could have been a very difficult.
And it feels like this is the exact same issue that we saw in game number 1 from EDG, right? We see Jiejie like, okay, we've got to make something happen, just ults in, forces a fight, but the rest of the team not able to go as deep. And it's exactly the same kind of fight that we saw in game number 1 that lost EDG their lead. They went too deep, Jiejie went too far, where the rest of the team couldn't follow up. And it feels like EDG struggling to get any kind of control. This time they haven't lost the lead. This time they've been behind the entire time. And LNG now 2,000 gold up with an extra tower going down as well. That'll be even more gold in their pockets. 5 men strong in the mid lane. They're just trying to brute force here. There's the realm warp used by Scout to deny any kind of dive.
Yeah, LNG just trying to play around the fact that Doinb has this package, trying to force as much as they can while that's available. Flandre now spotted on the flank. I feel like LNG are just going to turn onto Flandre or turn on towards this Rift Herald.
Yeah, Doinb just flies halfway across the map with that package, but a TP from Scout. No matter where you go, LNG, Scout has something to get there. Realm warping to the mid lane, TPing to the top lane. Scout just following LNG around the map wherever they go. But LNG backing away from the Herald here. It's actually EDG that end up in control.
Yeah, Ala is on the spot side, so trying to get control over that side of the map instead. And I'm trying to figure out, I think this actually might be more valuable for LNG, like getting control of the map, because where does EDG actually use this Rift Herald? Like, maybe they use it in the mid to get some pressure around this next dragon that's coming up, but I really feel like getting the map in your favor here as LNG instead of like trying to play to like take top tier 1, maybe top tier 2 could actually be the better call here. Just get some of the standing gold that's on the map in your favor instead of looking fully at this dragon.
Yeah, I'm keeping my eyes on this Renata as well, because I feel like this is a pick that we've really not seen that much of just yet. Like, we've seen a couple of teams dabbling, but really, it's not exactly meta right now. And so far this game, I'm yet to really be convinced at the value that it's bringing to the table. It doesn't feel like LNG have had... Like, if they're going to dive in, like, I can see the value, right? The ult is obviously great in that situation, but against this comp from LNG, so far, absolutely nothing, you know?
Yeah, I think it can have its moment if you are able to kind of like have that separation from LNG. Like, hey, look, we've hit Tarzan, we've hit Iwandi with the ult. The rest of LNG are running for the hills to get away from us. That where you separate LNG, you're like, cool, we deal with the front line, then we deal with everyone else. Could work out as a Rocket just to check the Baron. But yeah, I think that's where it can work. But at the moment, it means that on an EDG side, who actually like face checks a lot of the vision control that isn't there. Like traditionally, it's like, hey, we got an Alistair, Leona, someone along those lines who can actually face check this brush. That's not really the case. Jiejie's the only real one who can do it, and even he's only on one item, so not exactly the tankiest of people. So for EDG, that's why we're seeing like the rocket by Viper to check the Baron, because they're like, look, we actually can't face check into our jungle without spotting multiple members of LNG first, because if they're hiding in a bush, we just die, we lose Baron, and we lose the game.
You could just blast your ult into the brush, see if they're there. If they're not there, it's terrible. But if they are, man, that could be the play of the game. Not ideal, I will say. But yeah, and I just want to clarify as well, I'm not necessarily flaming the Renata pick. It's not that I dislike it inherently. I'm more just saying I need to see more from it. I need to be convinced on the pick because, again, we've not really seen it used that effectively so far in the LPL. Here we go. Drake coming up in 20 seconds, though, Dagda. And EDG would really love to grab this one. Flandre slowed by Tarzan, the zap, and a Gale Force as well. Means Flandre does get out to safety here. Scout just hanging out in the mid lane for the time being. He wants to be able to contest this next wave that arrives, but that might mean LNG can just start this one off for free.
Yeah, I mean, Jiejie has this Rift Herald, which he can place in the bottom side, but I don't know. It doesn't really feel like he's going to get much setup. LNG, though, haven't watered their flanks.
It's a 50-50 potentially, but Jiejie gets a fear onto Doinb, jumps into the rest of his team once more, but he's just not tanky enough. The bailout will do no such thing. And now the rest of EDG aggressed upon Tarzan, has some damage. There's the dragon going down. Flandre onto the backline. He's onto Doinb as well, but he can't quite finish that kill off. Gets his heal off, walks away with his life somehow. And EDG go 1-for-1, but ultimately they lost the Drake.
They lost the dragon, and honestly, they burnt a lot in that fight to try and make it happen. Even the double flashes from Scout and Meiko. LNG, though, they still have the range, they still have the poke, and they're still able to keep EDG at bay.
Honestly, Dagda, I'm struggling to see the win condition for EDG here. I'm struggling to see the way that this works out for them, unless you just have a huge wombo combo where the big fear comes out from Jiejie, the ult from Meiko, Viper can clean up. Like, aside from that, I really don't know how this works.
The win condition for EDG was about 15 minutes. Like, set these dragons up early, make sure that you're able to play through these side lanes, you know, get Scout roaming on the map, get him active, playing towards this training around the top side, set LNG irreversibly behind. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Now EDG are scrambling to try and play a team fight when that composition is not set up for it, and LNG are doing a wonderful job of like Tarzan and Wandy kiting back, allowing Ala and Doinb to do the majority of the work. I mean, you can see there, right? Ala most damage in that fight until you actually get EDG engaging in onto Light. Like, that's when Light can fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And Doinb on this Corki once again. Not doing so much in that last fight, but he's ramping up. Look, close to getting that Ludens as his third item, and that will be really where Doinb comes in online here. I1D going to try and check up towards the top side. Baron on the map at this point, and it is an LNG in control. And I want to remind everyone, this is an LNG that lost the series 2-0 to JDG. They got flattened by JDG. And then most recently, we're against LGD, one of the bottom teams in the league. Went the full 3 games, and it was messy the entire time. Now coming up against EDG, a team that I would have considered the favorite coming into this series. They are looking really clean. They are looking like they have a clear game plan. And this draft strategy, trying to ban out Doinb, has not worked at all for EDG.
No, and for EDG, it's been super sloppy. Like, no real contestation of where they want to put their... there's no real idea where they wanted to put their early pressure. Now, that will be spotted with that rocket this time around. That LNG are on the Baron. EDG, I mean, you don't really have Jiejie here yet.
I mean, can they contest here? Realm Warp going to come on through from Scout and Meiko. 3k on the Baron. Is it going to be a flip? Scout aggressed upon. Has the Zhonya's. Buys himself some time. Flandre already low as well, though. There's the big ulti coming out from Meiko. Is it enough? Flandre on the backline knocked back by Alla, but I1D will go down as well. Surely flashes out, actually keeps himself safe. It's one pick for EDG. They back away once more, but they found a kill onto Doinb.
One for one. One kill going the way of LNG. EDG matched the back, but still have to be careful of LNG being able to aggress forward with the long-range damage that they have. But greedy from LNG. There's no reason to try and, like, force that. It's not like you're trying to get out a TP from Scout or anything like that. It's just a case of them trying to brute force their way into this Baron, and they kind of get called on it. And this is what we talked about, is if LNG are the ones engaging, it becomes very easy for Meiko to get these big ultimates. And I think this was beautiful here. Like, you get it across everyone. No real way for LNG to escape. Doinb ends up auto-attacking his teammates, and that just sets up for Flandre there to actually turn this over.
Very nicely done. Flandre getting in the middle of everyone. And I have to say, Flandre in the team fights has been doing his best, right? I feel like Flandre has been the good thing about the EDG team fights across the course of this game. Managing to have some level of influence, because it doesn't feel like the rest of the team has really been able to do all too much so far. But you can never count a squad like this out. At the end of the day, this is the World Championship team. This is a team that, going into the World Championship, a lot of people, myself included, didn't believe that they were the favorite from the LPL, despite being the first seed from the region. They proved everyone wrong. They've proven everyone wrong so many times in the past. And it's easy to believe for me that they could prove us wrong in this game as well, but I'm still struggling to see it. I'm still struggling to see the scenario where they win. As Light literally 1v1ing Jiejie in the river.
Yeah, the biggest problem for ADG is that you've got 30 seconds until this dragon. Viper doesn't have an Infinity Edge completed. You've got 3 items on towards Light. You've nearly got the Luden's Echo there, and Ally's hitting like a truck. You need that Infinity Edge for Flandre to really carry this fight, but they just don't have the time to get there. And now LNG, with this mid priority, are going to be able to zoom themselves into river. Already have the vision control set up in EDG's jungle to spot out where EDG are.
Scout is on 3 items. He's going full AP Ryze once more. That has to be the answer, I think. Him and Flandre, the solo laners from EDG, have to make it happen. But on the other side, Light is big, Doinb is big, Alla is big. There are 3 carries on the LNG squad. And they've been winning so far this game as they move in towards the potential soul here. Tarzan might just go for a 50-50 smite here. He doesn't actually have that much to lose. If EDG get this Drake, it doesn't matter too much for LNG. The 50-50 goes the way of Alla in the end. And now the fight ensues. Tarzan turns gold to Flandre in the middle of everyone. Maybe this is it for EDG. 2 kills, 1 for Viper. Is Doinb trying to escape, but the realm warp forwards. Can they find any more? Scout turns gold and keeps himself alive. Alla stunned against his support here, but Light charging forward, getting the resets. Bail out onto Viper. Viper falls though. Jiejie in the back line. Light turning it around. Meiko alone. And LNG somehow find it.
Light played that fight beautifully, putting himself right in the thick of EDG to carry LNG across the line. LNG now, they're pushing for the win. 30-second death timers. It's only Meiko alive.
And once again, a singular fight in the late game, and LNG will close things out. Or will they? Meiko alive, 10 seconds on Jiejie. Flandre coming up shortly as well. 10 seconds on Viper. 1 tower down. Is LNG trying to finish things off? Good CC out from Meiko. He's buying as much time as he can, but the Nexus is bare. The respawns aren't there, and LNG make the upset happen. 2-0 over EDG.
And LNG just coming out swinging in that fight. This was a team that had a lot of doubts around them. Game number 1, the early game did not look clean, But game 2 was a very different story from LNG. The fact that they're able to take control of this early stage, turn that into clean team fights, and as well, the big difference maker being Light. We opted into at the start of the day, say, hey, look, what are you going to do, LNG? Are you going to play around split push? Are you going to play around Ala? Are you going to continue with this style and play around Light on that bot side? They play around Light, and in that final fight, that's where those dividends were paid. That's where all their hard work paid off.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. And you know, Light having an amazing game on this series as well. I feel like we didn't talk about Light enough during that game because there were other players that were flashier. But ultimately, this series, you don't necessarily need to be that flashy to just dominate a game, because if you are ignored for too long in a fight, you will just shred. You will just annihilate those health bars, and Light managing to do that in the final fight. Beautifully done. And once again, LNG back to back, showing EDG that their macro just isn't good enough. This objective-based gameplay that we talked about at the start of the day, LNG had an answer for it.
Well, the thing is, the objective-based gameplay relied on the team fights, and EDG's team fights really fell afoul here today. Like, you talk about the initial engage they tried to make in game number 1 that really, like, just trying to get that pick at the 20-minute mark, completely falling apart. You look at this game as well, the engagement that we had at the Rift Herald, not connecting at all. Viper not able to get into the fight whatsoever, whereas you've got the entirety of LNG working through there. And it just felt like we didn't get that kind of clean front-to-back fight. Again, this has been something that a lot of analysts have been looking at EDG going, what the hell's going on? Because you're supposed to be this clean team fighting team. That's what made you so special in 2021. But that's now gone. We're not seeing that anymore.
Where's the line? Where is the line, Dagda? Azael in absolute shambles somewhere in the world. Over in LA, he's, you know, crying into his pillow, missing the slight curve that we used to see from EDG every single team fight. Yeah, I don't know. It's been a bit disastrous for EDG, and off the back of such a good start to the year as well. That's the part that sort of boggles my mind a little bit, is that EDG came in, everyone was like, well, they'll have a big lull. They just won Worlds. I'm sure they had a really big holiday. I'm sure they had a lot of time off. Apparently not. They dominated the first couple of weeks, and then it's been more recently that they've started to fall off. And that is kind of disappointing to see. And hopefully best of 5 can turn that one around for EDG, but there's a lot of question marks to be answered.
So the problem that I have with EDG is that at the start of the split, they're playing against a bunch of the easy teams. Like, I'm just looking at it here. So JDG, who was massively struggling. And it was TT, Ultra Prime, GWB. That was their entry into the split. Then you look at their back half and it's like, oh, you're playing against all the top teams. Well, they lose to LvMao, lose to V5, Top Esports, ORG, lose to Anyone's Legend. Now, they did beat BLG in what was like an insane fight between Viper and Uzi, but now losing to LNG as well. Like, this is EDG pretty much losing to everyone that they were set to face in playoffs.
Yeah, it's a tough one for EDG as they are struggling against the top teams, and I don't know if best of 5 will be enough for that to be resolved when we come around to playoffs. But I want to talk about LNG as well, because I feel like we're just commiserating the loser here. But LNG showing up, and I think a lot of fans at home will have a huge sigh of relief, because remember, this is the team that went to